Hello everyone and welcome to my ultimate endgame guide for Verso. This is going to show you how to do literally millions of damage with Verso, and it's going to be an absolute boss shredder in the late game if you do get the right build correctly. I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and build that. It is going to be a very late game oriented build, so this is going to require a lot of pieces that are going to only come in the later stage of the game. However, I will tell you exactly which ones are going to be the most important and which ones you can kind of do without. Not everything is going to be crucial for this build. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up to date with the latest Expedition 33 content, as well as other content I'm going to post on my channel on a daily basis. So what does Verso do? Verso is going to be one of the playable characters in Expedition 33, and he's going to have a type of ranking system. Now the rank is going to go up and down depending on a few things. If it will go up if you do end up doing attacks, it will go up. If you do end up doing dodges and parries, it will end up going up. But if you get a hit, it will go down. Now you're going to start off at the lowest rank and you're going to slowly work your way up. However, there are ways to jump ahead and get straight up into S tier, which we'll discuss in a little bit. But let's first go through the skills. Starting off at the top, Define Strike. This one is not going to be very important. You can kind of just skip this one, put whatever you want here. This build is only going to rely on like 2, maybe 3 skills. This one is not one of them, so this is just whatever you want here will work fine. Overload, this one is a nice to have. It's not crucial, but it is nice to have. What it's going to do is it's going to increase you to A rank and refill all your AP, and also going to set your health down to 1, which is obviously a negative, but we do have pictos that benefit from low health, so this can be actually quite valuable sometimes. Now the reason why we have this picto is when you do get hit and you do D rank, it can take a while to build all the way back up to S tier, and this is going to help you get up that rank quite quickly, so you can boost right up to A tier and quickly get back into doing as most damage as possible. Strike Storm, not very important. Again, you can kind of put whatever you want here. I do kind of like this one a little bit because it does 5 hits, which means each hit is going to progress your rank a little bit. Whatever you want here will work. It's not really that important. Quick Strike, also not that important. This one's going to give you a little bit of a boost in your perfection ranks. It's going to make you go up a rank, but otherwise it's not very important. You can kind of put whatever you want if you don't want to have this. Steel Strike though, that's where it's going to be very important. Steel Strike is going to do a massive attack. When you're in S rank, it's going to even increase the damage. So after 1 turn, so you have to do 1 turn of taking no damage in order for this attack to go through. So the first turn will do nothing. If you take no damage in the next turn, then you'll be able to do a massive 13 hit combo, which is going to do crazy damage. I've hit myself like 2.5 million or something like that. I think that's the most I've hit so far, and I can go a lot higher potentially as well if I get more Lumina points. But this is able to do millions of damage, which is absolutely insane. Now, you're probably asking yourself, this is kind of bad, right? What if you get hit? Then it's going to be for nothing. However, there is a way to guarantee you won't get hit, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. So this will go through 100% consistently with the build that we currently have. Then we're also going to have Phantom Stars. This is actually just a nice way to get back into S rank sometimes. It's going to do 5 hits, and each one is going to do extreme light damage. It's going to also cost 5 AP when you're in S rank, so it won't actually cost all the way at 9, so it's a lot cheaper when you're in S rank, which you're probably going to be in S rank quite a lot with this build. And it's also going to be a nice backup for when you don't have your Steel Strike enabled. You can use this one as a backup plan to do some good damage when you aren't in S rank, and also build your way back up to S rank. It also can break targets, since it does have the break ability there, which is also quite nice. You can stun enemies, and that can be quite valuable for just getting some extra hits in later on. Speaking of the weapon, we're going to have the Chevalier, and the Chevalier is going to be located in the Crimson Forest by defeating the Gold Chevalier boss. This one is going to be a little bit of a late game boss, so it might be a bit difficult to take on initially, but when you do get this weapon, it is going to open up this build. This is quite crucial for this build, and the reason why this is crucial for this build is that it is going to start you immediately in S rank. Now, there's a big downside. You won't be able to get healed or gain shields, so it's obviously going to be a big negative. You're also going to have some other bonuses where you do 20% increased damage for each consecutive hit without taking damage, and this can stack up to 5 times. So obviously it's going to end up being quite a bit more damage, and that's going to really help make the damage output of this build a lot higher. Then apply on S rank. That's just a nice to have, not crucial. Now, you could play this without this weapon. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't have it. However, it means that you're going to have to build this up, and it's going to take some time to get into S rank, which is only going to be valuable then when it comes to like long boss fights, because otherwise the fights are probably not going to last that long to begin with. Then moving on to the pictos. Now, the pictos aren't going to be that important in terms of their perks, more so on their stats. So a lot of these pictos, they're not really important for their perks. We're just looking to have good stats here. For example, Death's Door, deal 50% more damage if health is below 10%. That one's actually quite nice because you do have that ability that's going to set your health down to 1, and this can benefit from that. But otherwise, it's going to give you a lot of defense and critical rate, plus 34% critical rate, and quite high defense is obviously going to be quite nice to help survivability. We're also going to have Second Chance. Now, Second Chance is not crucial for this build at all. It is a nice to have because it does give you a lot of health, and it does give you a little bit of crit rate, and also revives you when you die once per battle and gives you 100% health on the revive. This is going to actually be obtainable through the main story. I won't give you too much spoilers, but towards the end of Act 2, you will unlock this from defeating one of the main bosses, and this will actually give you just a nice stat line. You don't have to have this picture on. You can put something else in its place. It's not crucial. Full Strength, this one is going to be increasing damage when at full health by 25%. This one's actually quite nice to have this picture. The perk is quite nice because of the fact that when you do 25% more damage at full health in the beginning of the battle, when you do start, you're going to be at full health, which means you're just going to get 25% extra damage on turn 1, which is obviously going to be very valuable. Again, the Pictos aren't going to be very important in terms of their perks, more so in terms of their stats. You want to make sure that Verso has a lot of health. You want to make sure he's got some decent crit rate if you can help it, because more crit rate means more damage, and that is going to be what you're going to be looking for here in the Pictos. The perks themselves aren't really crucial. You can also put them as Luminas. Speaking of Luminas, now in the Lumina section, we're going to be having a couple of things going for us. Cheetah is quite crucial for this build. It's going to be a Picto you can only obtain later in the game from a boss that's quite challenging to beat. It doesn't have very difficult attack patterns to dodge, but it does have a lot of HP. It's called Sprung. It's going to be like a big metal monster that you're going to see in the middle of the ocean, and when you do fight it, when you do beat it, you will get the Cheetah perk. Now, the reason why the Cheetah perk is so valuable is it's always going to allow you to play twice in a row when it's your turn. Now, that's very important because, as we mentioned earlier, with the Steeled Strike ability, when you do end up doing that attack, you do have to wait a turn and take no damage in order for the attack to go through. While the Cheetah perk, since you get to go twice in a row, you are going to guarantee that you end up doing 2 attacks in a row, and that is going to allow you pretty much always on turn 1 do massive damage. This can take down a lot of bosses instantly. If it doesn't take them down, it's probably going to do a lot of damage nonetheless. So this is going to be great for the late game, and this is going to be really enabled by the Cheetah perk. So I wouldn't really play this build until you get to this perk. This is probably going to be the most important thing about this whole build. Without this, I don't think the build is going to work very well. So make sure you do end up getting to this perk before you try utilizing this build. Then we're going to have Confident Fight, and our Confident Fight is going to 30% increase damage but can't be healed. We can't be healed anyway since our weapon does prevent us from being healed. So this just doubles down and gives you extra benefit. This is just basically a plus 30% damage without a downside, because the downside is already there. Dodger, I just think it's a very easy Lumina to put on. It just costs 1 AP. So I just put it on everywhere because it's going to give you 1 + 1 AP on perfect dodges. And this build does require a lot of AP. It's going to require to do very expensive attacks, so having extra AP is always going to be very valuable. Then we're going to be having Energy Master. Now, Energy Master is not crucial to have in this build. It is very nice to have, however. It is going to be obtainable, however, by defeating Serenfair, and that's going to be the giant purple snake you're going to be seeing flying around in the sky. So you're only going to be able to do this in the much later stages of the game, and if you do, you're going to be rewarded with this Picto, and therefore this Lumina, which is going to be allowing you to, every AP gain is increased by 1. So essentially, it's going to double the amount of AP that you're going to be generating. Again, this is very nice to have. It's going to solve all your energy problems, and it's going to allow you to pretty much attack every single turn with his biggest attack. However, it's going to cost 40 Lumina points, so it's also going to require you to have a lot of Lumina points spare. So if you don't have that many Lumina points, feel free to cut this. It's not crucial, but it is very nice to have if you can support it. Energizing start 1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to be quite important. We need that energy to make sure that we have 9 energy on turn 1, because if we don't have 9 energy on turn 1, we can't use our big attack and do massive damage right off the bat. So this is going to be just there to make sure that we can get exactly enough energy to start attacking immediately like that. Energizing turn is also going to be quite important because it's going to be plus 1 AP every time you start a turn, and this is going to not just be on battle start, but every single turn. So that's going to help you out with your AP, and that's going to be very important. First strike, this is because I couldn't really get my Verso to go first. No matter what order I did, no matter what I did to his stats, he just wasn't going first. So if you can't get your Verso to go first, put on first strike. First strike is going to make sure that he goes first, because you really want to make him go first, specifically because you don't want to be in a situation where you use another character and then the other enemy starts attacking you and they attack Verso, and if they damage Verso, you won't be able to do your attack for full value. So that's for that reason I really want to make sure that Verso goes first, so he's uninterrupted, can do the big damage, and then it's not as important what happens to him. Although if it is a long boss fight, you still want to make sure he takes as little damage as possible. Inverted Affinity, apply Inverted on self for 3 turns. So the thing about this build is you can't get healed, and Inverted just means that you can't get healed. So it's doubling down on the fact that we can't get healed, so it's not going to be a major downside. So you can put this one on, just basically give you plus 50% damage while inverted, and that's going to give you just more attack power. Then we're going to have Painted Power. Now Painted Power is going to be also very crucial for this build, because otherwise all the damage is going to be capped at 9,999, and that's not really going to be worth all the effort you want to go through to do this. So this you unlock once again in the main story. I won't tell you exactly where to avoid spoilers, but at some point in the main story at the end of Act 2, you will unlock this Picto, and then you'll be able to uncap your damage, which is going to open up this build a lot. But you're going to need this. This is going to be crucial before you can play this build. SOS Shell is just going to be there for survivability, since we can't heal Verso. He is going to have a hard time surviving, and this is going to apply a shell when falling below 50%, so he does have a little bit of protection to make sure he doesn't die too easily. That's going to just help out his defenses a little bit. Then Warming Up is going to be the last one on this list, and that's going to be an ability that's going to give you 5% increased damage once per turn and can stack up to 5 times. So it's going to give you another 25% increased damage overall, which again, more damage is going to scale quite nicely, because when you talk about millions of damage, all these 25%, 30%, 50% extra damage, as you can imagine, is going to scale quite a lot of damage in the end. So that is quite important for this list. Now you can find this in the Coastal Cave. There's going to be a boss called with the Grossetate, and it's going to be a pretty high level boss, so you're going to need to be, high enough level to take this on. But once you do, you'll be getting this warming up Picto, and it's going to give you just nice extra attack power, and it's not that expensive, only 15 Lumina points, and it's going to be just a nice thing to have overall. In terms of our attributes, we're going to be putting a lot into agility, since we do have weapon scaling on agility. We also have weapon scaling on luck, and having extra critical rate is going to obviously do quite a lot of work for us. Since we do have attacks that are going to be doing over 10 attacks per hit, having extra critical rate so each of those attacks do more damage is going to be quite valuable. So you do want to have a lot on your luck. When you do level up your luck, it is going to increase your attack power as well. We also have 45 on might, and we also have a little bit on vitality to help with survivability, and defense is also going to be set at 39. Now you can play around with these stats a little bit. It's not crucial to have it exactly this way. Just make sure you do level up your luck and your agility a decent amount, and then you can put the rest wherever you like. If you feel like you're dying too easily, put more in vitality. If you feel like you want more attack power, you can put some in might, or you can put some in defenses if you also feel like you need more survivability. Overall, this build is going to be a very nice endgame build. It is going to be one of the more expensive builds in the game. It does require a lot of pieces to make it work, but it does do incredible damage, and it is going to allow you to absolutely melt bosses in the late game. If the boss doesn't die from Verso, you probably will be able to finish him off in a turn or two with your other characters. So it's going to be very, very powerful in the late game. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide. If you did, so leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section below, what is your favorite character to play? What kind of builds are you using currently? I'll see you guys again in the next one. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.